Have you noticed that as everything around you seems to decline, one thing still grows? It is the power of your rulers. None of their plans and directives have solved your problems or made your life better. The only result has been their increased control over you at the cost of your freedom. Do you know why? You gave them the power. You gave them the power. You gave them the power.
You're saying these are diverse coronaviruses and you can't vaccinate against them. There are no antivirals. What do we do?
Well, so I think that coronaviruses are pretty good. I mean, you're a virologist, you know all this stuff, but you can manipulate them in the lab pretty easily. It's just spike protein drives a lot of what happens with the coronavirus, zoonotic risk. So you can get the sequence, you can build the protein, and we work with Ralph Barrick at UNC to do this. Insert it into a backbone of another virus, and do some work in the lab. So you can get more predictive when you find a sequence. You've got this diversity. Now, the logical progression for vaccines is if you're going to develop a vaccine for SARS, people are going to use pandemic SARS as
sure.
But let's try and insert some of these other related and get a better vaccine.
And I guess also knowledge of what's there. If you see something emerging, you give it a head start on making a vaccine or a therapeutic.
That's true, and better knowledge of where they are as well, so that you can put your money into these clinics that matter. And that's one of the big things that we've been trying to push. There's a lot of the word predict, or the word anticipating, forecasting pandemics. It doesn't mean you can stop them. That's the problem. So what we're trying to do is say, on a global scale, if we can show where they're most likely to come from, the species they're most likely to originate in, the people most likely to get affected, a global actor like WHO or a national government can better allocate resources to the highest risk. It's pretty simple.
We're saying they are gain-of-function viruses because they were animal viruses that became more transmissible in human, and you funded it. And you admit the truth.
And you implying...
Senator Paul, your time has expired, and I will allow witnesses who come before this committee to respond.
And you are implying that what we did was responsible for the deaths of individual. I totally resent that. And if anybody is lying here, Senator, it is you.
Senator, welcome back. You were right again, and he lied. Now what happens?
Well, we know for sure, with absolute certainty, that the NIH, Dr. Fauci, did fund the Wuhan lab and continues to fund it. The newly released documents from Intercept show that there's another grant that goes 2020 to 2025. So the money continues to flow to Wuhan. I forced a vote about a month ago in the Senate, and we actually won unanimously, no longer to fund the Wuhan Institute, no longer to fund this research in China. Yet it hasn't been signed by the president, it hasn't been passed by the House yet. We do know that Dr. Fauci lied about the funding. He continues to say there wasn't gain of function. The reason he'll continue to his grave to lie about this is once it's acknowledged that this was very risky research and that he was funding it, then guess what? Then if it came out of the lab, some moral responsibility, if not legal responsibility, attaches to Dr. Fauci and the NIH for funding this. He's been asked in recent times, does he still support funding research in China? And he says yes. But for that alone, he should be fired. He should be out of government because he's recommending that we collaborate with the Chinese communists and that we collaborate with this lab, that at least a significant majority of scientists now agree the virus may well have come from the lab.
Well, I think the vast majority of Americans believe that now, too, and I think it's pretty obvious. So the great Dr. Fauci, the emails now puts a little gives us clarity as it relates to those emails that were going back and forth in a frenzied tone about, well, did any of our money go to this? Because they knew damn well what was happening with this. The idea that we're still funding this lab is insanity to me, Senator.
The other question is he denies its gain of function. Someone should ask him the next question. Why is it not gain of function? They took a virus, the SARS virus, which was a coronavirus from 2004, that had a 15% mortality. Then they linked it up with new genes from new coronaviruses they found in the bat caves down in southern China. And when they linked them together, they infected humanized cells. So what they found is that they could make the SARS virus, which was deadly but not very transmissible, into a deadly and transmissible disease. They ginned up a deadly virus to make it more infectious in the lab. If that's not gain of function, he needs to explain to the world why, when you combine two viruses and make something more transmissible in humans, why that is not gain of function. So I don't think he can even escape on a technicality, but no one that's been allowed to interview him has ever asked the follow-up question, why is it not gain of function?
In 2012, this is a man who actually said that he supported gain-of-function research. Even if the net consequences of such would be a worldwide pandemic, he still supported it. That's something, as a scientist, that makes no sense to me.
Can you imagine 4 million people have died from this around the world, and he thinks that it's okay to have a pandemic if we have an accident, that scientific research is worth it? But also, since we've discovered the new way of developing vaccines, they can develop vaccines very quickly now, and they don't need to have viruses that are created in the lab to make a vaccine. They can actually do it by genetically sequencing any newly found pathogen, any newly found virus that's affecting humans. But what they create in the lab is not something that's going to occur in humans or going to occur or evolve from animals. What they're creating in the lab is something that may never occur, because what comes out of nature is random. And so when you create something in the lab, the odds that you're creating something that could occur in nature is slim, if not none. So they're creating a virus in the lab that's more deadly, that never would have occurred in nature, and then we run the risk of it leaking. There's been multiple leaks in Beijing over the years, but we still do this in the United States, and the reason why it needs to be debated is we're doing this in North Carolina, and we're doing this in Galveston. They were both collaborating with Wuhan Institute. We also discovered from The Intercept today that some of this was done at a biosafety level 3, not a 4, but a 3, a lab that in our country we would say is inadequate for having controls to prevent a leak.
It's obvious to me, and I've now said it for a while, Dr. Fauci needs to be fired. What is next? Because I know that if I ever lied before Congress, I'm pretty confident, Senator, that people on the Democratic side would want to put me in jail, throw away the key, and you'd have to visit me with a cake and a file in it.
Yeah, we've referred him for criminal charges for lying to Congress. That's a felony, punishable up to 5 years. We sent the referral to the Department of Justice. I don't anticipate Biden's Department of Justice will do anything with it. But another reason he should go is that he's done everything he can to obscure the fact that monoclonal antibodies can save your lives. This is the thing created by Regeneron and Eli Lilly. And here's the thing that's going on right now. I helped 2 people get this treatment this week, and I think it may have helped them to survive this disease. Both times it was difficult to get because there's resistance. What we're finding is that if you become an inpatient in the hospital, they won't give you the treatment because Dr. Fauci's edict from above. See, the government bought all of this. So the government owns all the monoclonal antibodies, and they're telling the hospitals, if someone's in the hospital, you can't use this. So the thing is if you are sick and you're getting ready to go to the hospital, before you're admitted, say, can I get the monoclonal antibodies? Because once you're admitted, they're not allowed to give you the monoclonal antibodies, which I think is absurd.
I can't tell you how many people that I don't tell them what to do, but even I've had people vaccinated and people unvaccinated, and the breakthrough cases. And the first thing I say to them is, you need to immediately talk to your doctor about Regeneron or Eli Lilly. They have a version of it as well. And I know, for example, there's a hospital in Long Island, St. Francis, that administers it. I know Emory University in Atlanta does it. I know that Governor Ron DeSantis down in Florida has set up Regeneron centers and at different areas throughout the state for people that either have a breakthrough case that were fully vaccinated or people that are unvaccinated. And all the evidence and information that I've been able to obtain, but you're a doctor, I'll defer to you, is that the sooner you get it, the better off you're going to do.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. The point I'm making about the hospital is that it's better if you get it early, but let's say it has an 85% survival rate if you get it in day 2 or 3 of the disease. My guess is by day 4 or 5, it's not going to have zero effect. It might just have less effect. So I think that we should be studying whether or not we can give it at a later date, even if it helps a little bit, because its best efficacy is in the first couple of days, but we don't know who to give it to. No, but people think they're at home and they're feeling fine for 2 or 3 days. I had a young man who for 10 days was sick, and he was getting better. But then he developed a cough, congestion, and he was developing pneumonia, and they said, oh, it's too late to give you the monoclonal antibodies. I really think it needs to be studied further at this stage.